All right. Hello, everyone. I am excited to be here with Nicky Hassaballa. I just want to make sure because I had, did I get that right? I'm good with last names, but I wanted to make sure
Yes,
I
that
got that
is
right.
perfect.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we've talked a bunch of times, so I wanted to absolutely make sure that I had that right. Okay.
Yes, you
So
do.
Nicky and I actually recorded back in October, but as I announced to many of you who are my faithful audience out there, there was a bit of a fiasco with season 4 where I lost a bunch of my video and audio files, and you know, I could not quite I covered that. I'll cover that in the intro portion of this episode a little bit because I want to get to Nicky here. But
Okay.
Nicky is a self-love and relationship empowerment coach and catalyst. So
Correct.
Nicky, could you explain a little bit more about what you did or what you do and what that title means to you?
So, the reason why I got into this field is simply because I went through a lot of things and I got myself through it. And I really just wanted to share that with other people. And I've worked mainly with women, but I've also worked with men as well. And
Mhm.
it's really about getting back in touch with yourself, how you show up into the world, how you show up in your relationships, and just either enhancing your relationships or finding that relationship that actually enhances your life and the other person's life together.
Right. I think that's a great way to put it. And I think with one thing I do want to talk to you about is opinions on Valentine's Day, because I have some interesting opinions on that at myself. I'm always curious to hear people riff on that topic. But yeah, with that coming up, what do you think is the importance of what do you think makes that? How would you define, or what are the hallmarks of the idea that you found something like that or being able to identify that, do you think?
um Are you saying in terms of like for myself or for what I share with others?
Let's do both.
Okay. So
Yeah.
for myself, it's empowering to me because I almost feel like I've arrived. Like I've worked through past relationship trauma
Hmm.
where I can actually extract the lessons from it and not come from a place of anger or resentment or
Right.
blame. So I've taken that full responsibility and I've come to a place of closure and things like that. So it almost feels sinful to keep it to myself because
Interesting.
yeah, it's almost like this is a gift that was given
Hmm.
to me. Yes, I had to go through those hard times, but I still rose above that. And if I could do that, anyone else can do that. And
Right.
I want to be that person that helps guide them to get there.
Right. Absolutely. And you mentioned that you think that it seems like you think self-love is really the key to all of that, whether it's singlehood or being in a relationship. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, because I have found um, just living in life and
Hmm.
also working with clients that, and especially women, that they think once they're in that perfect relationship, once they're engaged, once they're married, that they've arrived. And
Yes.
it's almost like, but there's more to life. Like, what about your interests and your hobbies and your own development and
Right.
your own happiness? Because I truly believe that who we are to ourselves is what we're attracting into our lives. So
I love that.
if you're unavailable, if you're not showing up for yourself, if your heart isn't open, even though you want that in another person, until you make that shift for yourself, you're never going to be able to attract that.
You know what's interesting is that there's kind of like there's that whole debate over whether similarity makes a relationship, whether opposites attract, or whether it's a little bit of both, or whether it's one or the other sometimes, and it can only be one of the two extremes. And it's interesting because what I found is that the the deepest and scariest connections I have with people, and I mean scary in like in a way where it's like, wow, this could really be something,
Mm,
like, which is why it's intimidating, like scary, intimidating more so than scary, like I'm horrified and I want and like
yeah.
in terrible fear, but more like anxiety inducing fear. But
Mm,
the really strong ones are the stuff where it's like, oh, this is different than something I've experienced before. And there's like that hinge moment where either me or the other person, or sometimes both of us, are either like, all right, are we going to run away from the intimidation, or are we going to lean into the intrigue that we feel, you know? But then the other end, which is kind of like the easier way out, well, it seems like the easier way out, at least, is the familiarity aspect, where it's like, I'm used to this seems strange to me because this is an unknown. It's like the devil I know versus the devil I don't, except
right.
maybe the devil you don't know isn't actually a devil. It just looks like a devil because you're used to.
Because you're not familiar with it and it's not predictable.
Right.
So even if you're in a state with yourself
Hmm.
or in a relationship and it's not exactly what you want, a lot of times people are like, well, at least I have somebody. So
Yeah.
I will deal with those downsides that I actually don't like because I don't know what else is out there. And then that lends into more of limiting beliefs because that
Mhm.
person may believe, hey, there aren't good people anymore.
Right. And I don't know what else is out there. It could be listen to how that the entire meaning of that changes just with a change of tone. I don't know what else is out there. Like that's, or like, I don't even know what else is out there. Like it's such,
Right.
you could say the exact same sentence and it mean two different things depending on the way
Hmm.
you look at it.
Right. Because there could be that tone of fear or it could be curiosity. Like, I don't
Right.
know what is out there, but let's see.
Right.
Let's
Exactly.
test it out. But when you, as an individual, are sure of yourself, you're sure of your standards, what you will accept and you won't accept, and you know what your values and beliefs are, no matter what you come across, you're not going to waver. So there's
Right.
no fear of someone else changing you because if you're not willing to compromise yourself, then you have no fear.
Right. Yeah. Or at least I don't even want to say compromise yourself, but compromise your integrity, because I know
Yes.
compromise is necessary to some extent, but like if you're just completely shifting your boundaries or throwing them aside entirely, that's not good. And there is kind of a happy medium between the two. But one of the things that I totally agree with you on is this idea of, like I do not think I like being, for me, it's not being single or being in a relationship. It's being single or being in a good relationship. Like,
Yeah.
and like, cause I would rather be single than be in a bad relationship any day, any day. And like now, a good relationship, that is better than being single. But I think some people just think they almost approach relationships like it's this package item that they need to have on their quest in life, and it's not. It's the cherry on top.
Yes, because they think of it as almost a video game. Let me collect my
Right.
coins. I said that I was in a
Yes.
relationship. So if I'm in the relationship and I have the job and I have this and I have that, then that means I arrived. But
Hmm.
then somewhere along the line, you forgot about how you feel emotionally. Are you mentally challenged? Are you emotionally satisfied? Are you spiritually
Yes.
satisfied? And people get so caught up in acquiring that they
Right.
forget about the quality.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that's such a great way to put it. And I love the fact that you mentioned being challenged, because I think people conflate being challenged with being restricted, and they really are two totally different things. I love a partner who challenges me, or even just a friend who challenges me, or anything like
Yeah.
anyone. Whenever I'm just seeing what's out there, anyone who challenges me in a healthy way, that I mean, it's scary, but it intrigues me, and I have to decide
Yeah.
whether I'm ready for the challenge or not. But a restriction is different. A challenge is like, I think you can do better. And a restriction is more like, you're not allowed to do this because I said so.
Correct. Yes. And like that restriction lends itself to those abusive or toxic relationships
Right.
where challenging is not about, I'm going to argue with everything you're going to say to me. It's about what you just said. I think you can do better. Be like, okay, I know you well enough to
Hmm.
know what you are capable of. And I want to see you do better because I care about you.
Right.
And when an individual does better, when they're in a relationship, that's also benefiting that other person, because then you're growing within the relationship, because
Right.
then you become stagnant and every day is going to look the same. And then you're wondering, what am I doing here? And
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that also lends itself to why certain people cheat,
Right.
because you're not being, you're not, you're not
Right.
getting satisfied in a certain area.
Yeah, and there's actually Esther Perel has done a few talks on the fact that cheating does not have nearly as much to do with sex as people think it does. It has more to do with something. It has more to, I mean, sex can be a part of it, but it has more to do
Right.
with there's so many factors that go into it that that sex is just one thing, and sex really serves as form of as a the way she explained it, I think, was that I'm very liberally paraphrasing, but
Okay.
um, the way she explained it was that sex essentially just serves as a form of validation, as a symbol of a form of validation of and culmination that you're not getting from the relationship that you're in. You're not having sex because you think mechanically this is going to be better. Like very few people are cheat because of that reason. They cheat
Mm-hmm.
because they think I don't feel close to my person in this way, but this person is providing this need and this need for me, and it's making me want to feel close to them. And then that physical validation is a quick way to, to get that fix, even without it necessarily being without it necessarily having the bind of an emotional commitment, although it and then we think we can keep it a secret, or when people do it, but like you can't
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that.
Yeah,
It's just lying.
it's very, I agree with you. And that that portion of cheating with the sex is that instant gratification. It's almost like that drug. It gives you
Right.
that high, it gives you that satisfaction that you're looking for, but then it also plays into the 80-20 rule. You probably, the person that you said that you were committed to, you are probably getting 80% of what you need satisfied,
Mhm.
but you you keep on looking at those things that are missing, and you're like, wait, I need that satisfied too.
Like they can't be vulnerable with me, or like they can't, and this person's vulnerable with me, or this person
Right.
listens to me, or this person. In fact, a lot of women who are well, I won't even just say women, because it's not just women, it's women and men, because
Yeah.
this is not gender, this does not discriminate along gender lines at
Not
all,
at all.
but um a lot of people who are in abusive relationships, the reason that they'll often cheat is because they feel like they're not valued, especially when partners will put down their physical appearance. And so, and even when partners will cheat on them, they'll be like, well, if my partner doesn't think I'm beautiful or anything, or doesn't think I'm handsome, or doesn't think I'm good looking, there's this guy or girl right here who's saying that I'm hot stuff.
Hmm.
Why shouldn't I gratify that? And it doesn't make it right, but the thought, it does plant a
Right.
seed in your head that makes you think, you know I'm not getting that this person is, but really the healthier thing to do is to make a clean break and then pursue something else, rather than, because then that just creates a mess, unless you have certain boundaries and agreements in the relationship. But cheating is really about dishonesty more than it is about anything else.
It is the dishonesty, because you do think that you need to keep that from your partner,
Hmm.
but I think that not everyone sees cheating in the way that we're discussing it right now, because
Right.
I think that we understand it from a different perspective. And I'm going to make the assumption, just because of the way that we're speaking about it, that we've both been cheated on. And
Actually,
you
well,
haven't been.
I haven't been, to my knowledge, but
Okay, so good. I'm
but
happy.
I always say I always say to my knowledge, because you know it's not like I keep a log.
Yeah. You're like, this one, this time, this
Right.
happened.
Right. But but I will say that I have been on the receiving end of an emotional affair. Like I've been the person
Okay,
that's
that's
like the
fair.
grass is always greener person in an emotional affair. And I didn't realize that I was involved in an emotional affair until the other person said, hey, we're talking a lot and this it's making this guy I'm seeing uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, that
Well,
would have
I
been
didn't know.
that would
Yeah.
have been helpful information for me before we were being, because now my behavior in context seems wildly inappropriate, especially considering that you were not only, it wasn't, and like this wasn't like, you know, one of those situations where it's like I'm hitting on someone and they're just like, it's like like there's a difference between when you like make a pass at someone or when you're flirting with someone and they're
They
just kind
were
of like,
completely engaged with
they
you.
were encouraging it. Like it was
Yes.
very much encouraged, you know, and
Mhm.
like, and it's like, well, yeah, I would be uncomfortable too if I were him. Geez, like
Yeah. Yeah.
you didn't like you didn't think to tell, like now I have to adjust now I have to rethink my entire whatever this is with you, you know,
Right.
like whether this is a friendship or more, whatever it was, I have to rethink it at this point because I don't know if you can be honest with me, and I don't want
And
to get mixed, and you're getting me involved in something that I had no intention of being involved in.
exactly, because in a way that person also didn't put you into consideration because you had a certain level of vesting into
Right.
whatever it was, friendship, um, like possible relationship, things like
Right.
that. So it's, yeah, it's always two-sided. I think that's one of like the most important things when you're in a relationship. And this has to do with friendships too. It's any sort of relationship that you're in. There
Hmm.
has to be a certain level of consideration involved.
Right. Well, and I've had female friends that I've asked out and they've made very clear boundaries with me where they're like, nope, or yes. And you know, and like we'll either go on the date or we don't. And if something changes, then they let me know, or if they don't. And I've had other ones that are so wishy-washy that it's like, pick a side, you know,
Yeah.
we've been playing this game for long enough. I'm fine with being friends. Do you really think that I'm that desperate to get in your pants and that's the only thing that I value about you? I mean, like I said, like it, I'm someone who I've kind of developed this idea where I call it the difference between ulterior motives and additional motives, where an ulterior motive is like, I'm doing this because I want this result.
Hmm.
Doing things with addition, that's different than doing something with an additional motive. When you do something just out of the goodness of your heart, you do it to see someone smile and for nothing more. Now you might hope that it leads to something else, and if it does, fantastic, I'm open to that. I'm not going to close myself off to that possibility, you know, but like I'm not going to be hell-bent on it either. And I
Right.
think that that's something that so few people have. And I don't say this to brag about myself or anything. I say this just as an assessment of the culture at large. That's such a concept that seems lost on so many people that it's like, yeah, I'm doing kind things for you, and also I'm doing it because I think you're awesome. And you know, if the invitation is open, yeah, I'd like to give things a shot. But it's like, if not, then I still value you. It's like either you want this or you want that. It's like, no, I I'm not so emotionally dysregulated that I can't figure this situation out. And like maybe when I was 18, 19, 20, sure. But like at almost, I'm going to be 30 in March, and like we're all adults. Like, can we please behave like adults?
And the thing is, we have, I think it's like 5 generations in society now, which is kind of like a new thing. And every generation was obviously raised different.
Right.
Some generations are closed off. Some of them are super sensitive. Others are, hey, I'm super open. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like you never know who you're dealing with. And then with each generation, there is an embedded belief system that
Right.
may not hold true anymore. So people are constantly having to adjust and figure out. And it's like this investigation each time. And
Mm-hmm.
not everybody wants to to go through that. Some people are like, nope, I'm going to stay single. I don't care how old I am. I'm happy with the life that I've built for myself. And I have my group of friends. I have my family. I have whoever else comes into my life. But to have a long-term relationship is not what's going to work for me.
Mhm.
So people have to understand that there's so many different dynamics out there, and we're not all cookie cutter, and we come
Right.
from different experiences.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's
And
just finding that balance.
right. And one of the things you mentioned earlier was like you think that like people get to a certain point and they think they've arrived. And I've kind of abandoned that, and I try to get some of my clients to abandon that idea too. Because first of all, I'm I'm actually going to be doing on another podcast with called the Promise Podcast with her name's Carrie, and and we're going to have a conversation about like, you know, attitudes towards marriage. And I've never been
Mm,
married before, but like I have the clickbait version of what I'm trying to of my, you know, theory is that weddings are ruining the institution of marriage, which that's the clickbait version, bait version.
okay,
But like the real version is more like weddings are not where things stop. That's the beginning of it. Like
exactly.
we need to stop treating marriage as the culmination of love and rather as a celebration of love. The foundation is not the
It's not the
foundation.
marriage.
Yeah, it's the foundation is the relationship, and that keeps going. Like it's not like you suddenly sign a piece of paper and everything's different. No, the foundation should already be there. And like I mentioned to her that I've been in there was a relationship I was in where I some of the most intimate moments that I had with my partners, you know, just like in just the most like the closest moments I had with them, I will value more than like if I ever were to have gotten married to them, I would value that way more than any wedding ceremony, because that's the real foundation of what the relationship was
Mhm.
and what meant a lot
Yes.
to me. Not because I signed some piece. And I'm not saying I'm against marriage or against weddings, but what I'm saying is that you mentioned the idea of arriving or the finish line. That's not the finish line. If you think that's the finish line, then your marriage is going to fail.
Hmm. Yes, I agree with you. And I can honestly say the relationship that brought me to where I am today, which was completely, it was so mentally and emotionally abusive.
Hmm.
And this person, that was his goal. Get married,
Hmm.
have the house, have the dogs, maybe kids, all these things. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but what's going to happen after that? Like, where are we going? And we were already on shaky ground just because of the type of
Hmm.
relationship that it was.
Sure.
So I do understand what you're saying. And I feel that not all generations are thinking that way, but
Right.
there's still that large population of people that, and I'm going to speak from a woman's standpoint
Sure. Go
because
ahead.
I think they're the drivers of the wedding and the marriage and like, this whole idea. I feel that over history, women have almost been taught that they need to get married in order to have a certain level of
Oh,
financial security in their life. And
yeah.
we don't live in that world anymore.
No, 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 no. It's I mean, marriage was commodified
Right.
long ago. It began actually almost as a transaction in a lot of ways. Like even if we read
Yes,
back in some old if we go back just a few centuries, it was that way in a lot of
exactly. It
ways.
was a way to keep the wealth within certain families. It was a way to ensure a certain level of survival and a legacy and things like that. And we almost have to let go of those old ways.
Right. Yeah,
And
because go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say that I feel like that is a factor and a driving force in the weddings. And then
Mhm.
also, I believe social media plays a part.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Like we
Everybody
can't
has to have
ignore
the
that.
best Instagram wedding. Like everybody has to have the best Instagram pictures for the wedding and all that stuff. It's so true. And the other thing is that we think about the term relationship status, you know, like and how Facebook kind of put that into the lexicon.
Yeah.
Um, well, it seems like there are some people who put more emphasis on the relationship part of that, and there's other people who put more emphasis on the status part of that. You
Hmm.
know, like, I mean, because a relationship is a connection. Any kind of relationship you have with anybody, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or a familiar relationship, it's a connection at its heart. And the status surrounding it is all just how other people see it. Now, that doesn't mean that status is meaningless, but it means that if we put the emphasis on that, like, you know, the whole, rather than just like we're commodifying it, we're turning it into a transaction, we're turning it into currency, and relationships should never be currency. Relationships should be reflective, and they should be, you know, like, not, I don't even like the idea of what people call a reciprocal relationship. I prefer calling it a reflective relationship, because I like the idea of,
That's a nice way. And
yeah,
in the past, I've almost said, I want some reciprocation. And I like that reflective concept because, in fact, you do reflect each other. And
right,
this is how you maintain that balance. Sometimes
right,
someone's going to be up here and you need to be down here. And then just the course of events in life are going to shift it, and it's
yeah,
constant. It's the ebb and flow of a relationship. It's never
a-
going to stay all the way high all the time or low or whatever. It's always
absolutely,
changing, and it's those people in, I shouldn't say those people, it's like almost like I'm pointing my finger at them, but people, it would be helpful for people to understand that there are ebbs and flows, and it's not just
right,
like, I've arrived, I'm here, we're
yes,
happy, and we have the house and the car and the boat and
all
the dog.
status.
Yeah,
All those
it's
things are all
all,
status.
yeah, exactly.
And it's very much like, and reflective, like, because I think a good relationship and a good partner is like holding up a mirror to yourself. A bad one is either like using an Instagram filter or a funhouse mirror. Funhouse mirror is like abusive, and like they're putting you down, and it makes you feel bad about yourself because you look at,
Distorted.
yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Instagram filter is the person who puts you on the pedestal, but that seems good for a while, but
It's
after a
not,
while it's not, you know. You need the
it's never
person
good.
who, it's like you're looking in the mirror and you're like, oh, that looks pretty good, and then it's like, oh, I could probably work on this here a little bit, you know, maybe lose a little bit here, like
Yes, exactly.
yeah,
Yes,
like,
and I've experienced a reflective relationship,
mm-hmm,
and it was amazing because
yes,
I'm in a place where I'm like, yes, I want to keep growing. I don't want to hold on to past trauma. I don't want to keep having those triggers. So I appreciated that that person reflected that back to me, not on purpose, where it's just like, oh, that just happened. So Nikki, you got to work on this. It's me um seeing it and then making that decision to say,
right,
oh, I want to work on this, or I'm aware of,
yes,
it's that sort of
absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to experience that too, which is another thing that I wanted to bring up, is that, you know, like, and when I say, like, because reciprocation is obligatory, reflection is like, because reciprocation is like, I always say, I you scratch my back, I scratch yours. It's like
Hmm.
tit for tat. Whereas reflective is, that was so nice of you to give me that back rub. I think I might give you one too, because it made me feel good.
It lends itself towards that unconditional love
Right.
where I'm just going to give this example.
Sure.
I have a major sweet tooth, so I will
Mm-hmm.
be a hoarder of cookies, cakes, brownies,
Right.
whatever. And in this reflective relationship that I was in, we loved desserts together. So
Right.
we shared that. I would always give him the
Mm-hmm.
best bite. And it
Right.
made me happy that he enjoyed it. So
Right.
I was like, it's okay. This is just food. Like it's not like a
Yeah.
detriment if I don't get to have that
Right.
chocolate chip or something, you know?
Right.
But it was just, it's that basic where it's
Yeah,
like, I
absolutely.
care about you and I love you that much that I was like, the thing that I would give myself, I'm going to give to you.
Right. And the other thing about removing this idea of arrival is that because the reflective relationship I had, and it was the healthiest relationship of my entire life, and it didn't work out. It didn't work, but it didn't work out because, you know, it didn't work out because there were sometimes just life happens and it's not, and people say, well, you just didn't make enough effort. That I could go into all the details, and if I did, people would understand why it wasn't a lack of effort. It was just sometimes extenuating
I,
circumstances happen that where it's like you're almost being selfish to keep holding on onto each other that tightly.
yes, it's a
It's
necessity for both of you to part because both of you probably had to work on something individually. Because if you
right.
stayed together, it would turn into one of those bad relationships.
Exactly. And that's
Mhm.
exactly the reason why we split, because we, it was something that, you know, initially was in person and then became long distance. And initially there was kind of a plan, but then a bunch of things that were unforeseen happened that got in the way. And it was like we both had a discussion. We were like, the last thing we want this to do is sour the memory of how great what we had was. And we left it open to reconnecting if the opportunity ever presented itself, but we also understood that we couldn't stay attached to that possibility. But the reason I bring that up is because I think we need to also abandon this idea that if a relationship doesn't end in marriage, it's a failure. Because I think that's complete bullshit. I'm sorry. I really, really do. Like it's just, it's so, because I think any relationship that does not that does not damage you and that helps you grow as a person, I think that's a net positive. This reflective relationship, even though it didn't end, even though it was painful when it ended and heartbreaking when it ended, and even though it didn't end in, getting to the finish line,
Mm,
I if I had to live life 1,000 times over, I would do the same thing over 1,000 times.
yes, I am in complete agreement with you because I think even though I don't know the details of that reflective relationship,
Hmm.
I had the same exact thing happen to me where
Right.
I'm actually glad that we're not mad at each other and we left it
Hmm.
open and there's still that possibility and we just understood where
Hmm.
it could go and we didn't want to tarnish what we had because at least
Right.
we have those good memories. And even though, like you said, even though it still ended, I still walked away with those lessons because it was still a
Hmm.
reflective relationship. So I still saw things that I needed to work on for myself
Right.
and then
Right.
him for himself. And if we get back together, awesome. And if we don't, I'm still okay.
Right. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's also not having that dependency on
Right.
your partner because that partner is there to complement you,
Hmm.
not to complete you.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I was talking to someone recently who, was talking about a relationship that they were in that was kind of just there was some uncertainty involved, and I just said, look, I'm not telling you what to do here, but just I know for me right now, I'm not ruling dating out, but at least where I am in my life, it's very low on my priorities list because I'm going through a lot of things and life changes right now. And I want to make sure that when I share my life with someone, it's a life that I feel like is worth sharing with them and that I'm proud
Mhm.
to share with them. And so like I don't want to share this period of turbulence and uncertainty with people. I want to share stability, and that doesn't mean that I'm going to just shut the door to everybody, but it also means that, like, if I'm begging someone to come into a some like a little bit of turbulence, I think that's unfair of me.
And it's collectively, I feel like this is a time for people to transform. Like the
Hmm.
opportunities are presenting themselves in different ways to each person, because obviously we're all different. We all have different experiences and
Right.
aspirations and things like that. But I think that this is a time of that transformation. This is when the caterpillar is almost
Yes.
finalizing and we're going to emerge as that butterfly. And it's when we're in that butterfly stage where it's time, like, hey, okay, I'm
Right.
open. We can
Yeah.
connect if it's a match.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And right now I'm at my parents' house because I wanted to just, they're away in North Carolina, and I wanted to just kind of I knew I'd have the house to myself, and I just wanted to
Hmm.
get away from my apartment and just, have a little bit of a nice space. And they did renovations on this house over the past year after my dad retired. And I'm kind of I kind of view singlehood as your priority should be renovating who you are, like,
Yeah.
and it's like you said with the transformation, like finding that doesn't mean that you can't invite people into your house if they knock on the door, but
Hmm.
like you don't want to slam the door in their face. But it also means that that while the renovations are happening, there should be an understanding that your focus needs to be on building the scaffolding or
Right.
rebuilding the scaffolding or deconstructing and rebuilding. That needs to be your primary focus, not finding someone else to do it for you.
Yeah. Exactly. I agree. And it depends on the person. Are they ready to do that self evaluation and self assessment and make new goals for themselves?
Mhm.
Or are they going to stay at the status quo? And I feel
Right.
like that is almost staying at that victim mentality of
Yes.
it's everybody else's fault. It's not me.
Right.
And you put yourself on a self-proclaimed pedestal or
Right.
entitlement.
Right.
And I've been there.
Mhm.
I
I
was
have
that
too.
person.
Yeah.
I was that person where it's like, it's your fault. I'm doing everything great. I'm a wonderful person.
Mhm.
Like, why wouldn't anyone like me?
Mhm.
And it's only after. It's obviously always in hindsight. And
Right.
I'm reflecting, not reflecting on, oh, what could I have done different? Because that doesn't mean anything
Right.
because it's
Exactly.
already done. It's what were the contributing factors that I had control over
Mhm.
that were coming from me. It was my responsibility.
Yeah.
So it's looking at it that way. And not everybody is ready for that, and not
Sure.
everyone is comfortable with it.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense to me. And I think that one example I can give you from my reflective relationship was that something she said to me before I kind of started this process of kind of like taking the plunge onto my own was basically, you're a guy who has a lot of I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember the exact words, but the general theme of it was you're a guy who has a lot of great wonderful ideas, but they often just kind of stay plans. And
Mhm.
when she said it, I wasn't ready to hear it at all. So it cut deep, and it didn't cut deep because it was like she was trying to hurt me. It cut deep because it was way too accurate. Like, and it was
Yes.
at a time where I really was struggling with that aspect of myself. And after it was over, I kind of was like, it wasn't, I wanted to prove her wrong because I was like, well, she was right. I can't prove her wrong. And like, nothing will change the fact that when she said that, she was right in a lot of ways. Not entirely, but in a lot of ways, she was right.
Yeah. Mhm.
And, you know, I said, but what I want to make sure is that that's never, ever true about me again.
Right. Right. Because I can understand that, because it's almost that scary moment where you're like, wait, I thought that my cloak of invisibility was actually
Right.
working, but somebody just saw right through it.
Reflection.
Yes. So if that person can see it, that means I'm probably reflecting that out to everyone else.
Right.
And then you have to make that decision. Do I want to keep showing up that way? Or do I want to overcome that and actually be the person that I'm meant to be, the person that I want to be for myself?
Right. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying I've gotten that down pat at all. I'm just saying I started taking the steps,
Yes,
like,
I understand that as well. I understand that as well because I think now speaking with you and
mhm,
you talking about a reflective relationship,
yeah,
I was like, "Oh, okay, this relationship is real. This wasn't just something that happened
right.
to me or something that just happened to you." So I think that it has a similar sort of maybe format
Right.
across the board
I would
because
agree.
yeah, it's there to reflect what still needs to be worked on
Mhm.
within yourself. And it's just a matter of, are you going to take those steps or are you going to sit there and be like, no, I'm going to resist and I'm going to be stubborn.
In a lot of ways, it's like coaching. It really is in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not saying that your partner should be your coach. That's not what I'm
Yeah,
saying. But
no,
I'm
I'm just,
saying that there's a similarity there that, like, it's I'm pointing this out to you not because I'm trying to use it as leverage against you or because I'm trying to get one up on you or because I'm trying to
mhm,
win an argument or because I'm trying to hurt you. I'm pointing this out to you because I am your biggest freaking fan and I see things in you that you don't see in yourself sometimes, and I know that you can do it, and I'm tired of watching you get in your own way.
yeah, yeah. It really comes from a place of love.
Hmm.
It's not anything else. It's not so that I can benefit from your success.
Right.
It has nothing to do with that because like I mentioned earlier, the way that you show up is how you're going to show up to everybody else in your life. It's not
Right.
just benefiting you, it's benefiting me, it's benefiting the people you work with, it's benefiting your family, things like that. So it really is it's something that has many arms that
Hmm.
spread wide. And
Right.
I don't think people necessarily see that because it's very easy to compartmentalize those different aspects of your life.
Eh, no, because they think it's all hugs. They think it's all hugs and kisses, and there should be hugs and kisses. Like that should be part
Yes.
of it. It's romance, but like at the same time, there need to be nudges and pushes.
Mhm.
Emphasis on the word nudge because I don't mean obviously with the populations I work with, I do not emphasize any sort of physical confrontation, but just like, hey, get out there, like do something, like a little bit of motivation there. Love is not always meant to be cuddly. Sometimes it's supposed to be a little tough, but it
Yeah,
shouldn't be all one or the other.
right. Because it's not the way I see those sort of relationships is it's not just about those fuzzy feelings.
Right.
It's that partner in your life. Like, are
Right.
you going to help each other? If this one rises, okay, I'm going to support. And then it's my turn. And then I need that person to support me. Like, we just keep rising based on
Yes.
what our relationship goals are, too. Like, I believe that
Right.
you should have your individual goals because you were an individual before you got together. So just
Right.
because you got together doesn't mean you forget about yourself,
Right.
but you also have to have those relationship goals.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and that's like what the true definition of a power couple is. I feel like that's a term that gets thrown around a lot and really just overused a lot. But really, it's the power couples are not the ones who maintain. They're the ones who are like who have that fire in their bellies where it's they love each other so much that they're not afraid to you know risk challenging the other person, they're it's secure but it's not safe, like it's secure in the way where like they know that they have each other's backs, they know it all comes from love, but it's not, they don't play it safe with each other.
Right, you're taking those leaps of faith.
Right, exactly.
Yes, exactly
That's where you
right.
see the power couples come from because it's like
Mhm.
a, I mean, and though like the ones that really last, like when I get bored in dating or in relationships when I'm with someone who just doesn't really like when there's not that little twinge of tension of challenge, it bores me and I just,
Yeah,
it makes me walk away.
because you are not looking for that stagnation. You're
Right.
not
I've
just
been there.
looking, you're just not looking for, oh, make me feel loved. And
Yeah.
let's be like,
Pacify me.
yeah, yes, that's a good way to put it. Yes, exactly. It's just like, what are you going to do for me? Not
Right.
in, I'm trying to take advantage of you, but hey, we're both in this. So how are we going to elevate each other
Hmm.
and help each other to evolve?
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
we're not meant to be stagnant people. Because if this world was stagnant, we wouldn't even be where we are today. We wouldn't have the structures, we wouldn't have the technology, we wouldn't have the luxuries that we have.
Hmm. Stagnancy is
So,
for a perfect world.
yeah, exactly. So it's like we don't, it'd be nice to get to that utopia, but we don't
Right.
live in the forest and eat berries and
Right.
deer are our friends. Like we're
Right.
not there
Exactly.
yet.
Yeah. And honestly, I think it would be, I think we'd get bored with that after a while. We might.
It's
I know I
perfection.
would.
Yeah, it's perfection. And it's just like, well, what are we working for? It's almost like that's getting us to a place of nirvana, where we're
Right.
like, okay, we have arrived. We've arrived spiritually. We don't need to achieve anything else. So it's almost like, what's the point of our existence?
Yes. And Nirvana, basically, the whole concept behind it is that there's no longer a need for, exist for the
A
self to
physical
exist.
existence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There's
Mhm.
no longer a need for that to exist, because it's like, what's the point of it? Like, we everything's one. I've talked about this with a number of people, and it's such a weird thing to keep bringing up, but um, the Weeknd's new album, Dawn FM. A lot of people, I think, who don't really delve into his music a lot, don't understand the spiritual undertones that are there. And I know that probably sounds crazy to so many people who are listening right now,
I
but
um I haven't heard the album, but I'm not going to discredit the fact that he has those undertones in there.
yeah, because if you really listen, like, a lot of his stuff, his past few albums, they've been like about this weird relationship with fame that he has, where it's like, I'm addicted to it, but I'm tired of it, like,
Mm.
and I want something more meaningful, but I can't quit it. Um, and then After Hours was supposed to be like the death of that version of himself, which is why he was all bandaged up for all the press stuff, and got beat up. And then Dawn FM is like, he's in this dark pit of vipers purgatory, and he's trying to get to the end by letting go of all the regrets that he had in life, and all of the things in his life that looks back on now, that once he celebrated, that now he's trying to figure out, what should I have celebrated those things or not. You don't realize that's the theme of the album really until the very end, on the last track, when Jim Carrey, who's playing the radio DJ throughout the entire album, does this crazy thing about how, like, you have to be heaven to see heaven, and you might even forget your own name when you get there, like, because you're
Because
one
once
with
you,
everything.
yeah, once you get to that level, you have completely let go of the ego, which is the physical, which is the human experience.
Right.
So there's that constant battle within us of, okay, my spirit, my soul wants to
Hmm.
pursue something, wants to express itself in a certain way, but that ego side of me that is conditioned by society and everything associated with that, there's that constant battle.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it is. So now that you're talking to me about this album, I'm actually going to have to listen to that album,
You will. Yeah,
because,
it's so good. It's
and
so
I do
good.
appreciate Jim Carrey
Yeah,
because,
I love Jim Carrey.
yeah, and I love him for that spiritual awakening side of him.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he is funny. I do appreciate his humor to a certain extent,
Right.
but it's when he gets to those deeper and esoteric topics that you're like, huh, yeah, okay, he's
Yeah.
arrived.
Yeah,
He's like on
exactly.
a Keanu Reeves kind of level,
Yeah.
in a
Right,
sense.
right.
Yeah,
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 in terms of the Hollywood world of people who've kind of like
exactly,
gotten level-headed and stuff,
exactly,
um
yeah.
yeah. All right, Nikki, I unfortunately have to go because I have a group to run with Healing the
Okay,
Wound.
yeah,
But this was great to have you
yeah, it
on
was awesome.
where can people find you? And also, I'm gonna plug your podcast, even though, and ask when you're planning on releasing new episodes for that as well.
Yes. What's crazy? I was just looking at my podcast and I said, okay, I haven't done new episodes for about a year because I think I was going through my own transformations and things like that. But my podcast, the episodes that I do have, that's on Anchor, which could also be seen on Spotify or heard on Spotify. And the name of my podcast is Fluidity Ignited. I can be found. Thank you. You have told me that you do like that name.
I really like the name. I'm actually kind of pissed off that it's not my name.
I know you said that, but I actually love the name of your podcast because as I'm like, wait, maybe I should change the name of mine. And then I was thinking of yours. I was like, wait, John has such a great name too, because everybody has a story.
I appreciate that.
Yes, everybody has a story. So be proud of your name as well. It's a good name.
I got to give a shout out to my roommate Corbett because he actually kind of helped me mull that one over. So shout out to Corbett if he's listening. And I'm way overdue in having him on here. So
there you go. Now he needs an invitation now that you shouted him. Yeah. So I can also be found on Facebook under Nicky Hassaballa, LinkedIn. I think I'm on LinkedIn as Nicole Hassaballa.
Yeah, I think you are too.
Yes. And also on Instagram, I'm just Nicky Hass. So NICKYHASS 14.
Now, is your profile private or public? Because
it's a public profile.
Okay.
Actually, my Instagram, I might have to switch that over to public, but my other profiles are public.
Okay, because I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure of that just to because I remember when I think when I did follow you, if I remember correctly,
I think you had to request. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will make it public.
Okay.
So thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
No problem. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Nicky. This has been great.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's been awesome. I enjoyed the conversation.
Me too. We'll stay in touch.
Okay. Yes, definitely. Have a good night and good luck with your group.
Thanks. You too. Bye.